Okay, so I'm hoping that now our video is back up and running. So let me go ahead and see if you all can hear me.
It's working, Tracy. Just mute yourself on Hangout.
All right, excellent. Roger, Carrie, do you want to go ahead and join me again? You know how to.
Okay, it says my video was stopped, so I can't join it. It says the host stopped my video.
Here we go. Let's see. It's better? Okay,
Better.
great. Sorry about that. Why don't you go ahead and start over, Roger? You're just telling us about what your role is.
Sure. I have people telling me the YouTube isn't working still. I don't know if that matters or not. I'm trying to refresh it.
Screen, yeah.
It is? Oh, good. All right.
We have actually a new YouTube video that we are now streaming to the museum's website. So. Oh,
wonderful. That's very smart. If you actually want to send that out on Twitter, my folks will retweet that to people as well.
Oh, okay. I think Madeline can probably do that.
Yeah, she's great at that. So I'm Roger. I make and teach video games at the University of Utah. Dino Lab is one of the games that we made. I teach students how to make video games, and then I also work with wonderful scientists like Carrie, students, and all sorts of people to make a variety of games. Everything from flight simulators to help pilots, to games for kids fighting cancer, to get exercise in the hospital, and anything you can imagine in between. So I've been doing this for, I don't know, longer than I care to admit. My beard was much shorter when I started.
Okay, Carrie.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Levitt-Bouzian, and I'm a paleontologist at the Natural History Museum of Utah. My role is called the Paleontology Collections Manager, so I'm kind of like the librarian, but for dinosaur bones, which is more exciting. So I'm in charge of all the fossils and dinosaur bones that come into the museum and all of them that go out on loan to other museums. I also go out in the field and dig dinosaurs for about most of the summer, actually. So about a third of my job is actually on dinosaur excavations, digging dinosaurs, which is my favorite part of my job. And yeah, and it's a really fun thing to do, I think.
Sorry, I still had myself on mute. Okay, so excited that you both are here. One of the first questions we have is about what inspired you to do what you do today. So we can start with.
Do you want to go first, Carrie?
Again?
Or I'm happy to go first.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot of things inspired me to do what I did. So I grew up playing video games. I loved video games growing up, had a great time with them. And in fact, I have a funny story where my dad took me out a few years back for dinner, and he said, "Listen, when you were a kid, I told you not to play so many video games, but it sure turned out well for you." And so, so that's how I got my start in all of this. And I was lucky enough to grow up around meeting people who made video games. And that's actually what inspired me to start or co-found the video game program at the University of Utah. When I was growing up, you couldn't study video games in school. And now all over the nation, there are video game programs where if you want to learn to make video games or understand them and how they help people, you can go to college and you can do that now.
Thank you.
And I got inspired to be a paleontologist when I was little, and I went on a family vacation with my parents to South Dakota, Hot Springs, South Dakota, where there was a really awesome museum where they actually have a building on top of an excavation where about 63 mammoths all died in one area, kind of like the La Brea tar pits. And they couldn't get out. And so I went there. Up until that point, I wanted to be a princess, but then I left wanting to be a paleontologist, which was ideal, I think, and more likely. It was really great. I saw the mammoths that were preserved, fossilized mammoths there, and there were camels and short-faced bears and saber-toothed cats and just a bunch of animals that lived in the Pleistocene, which was so cool. And I met the head paleontologist there, and he answered all my questions about what fossils were and a little bit about mammoths. And that really sealed it for me, that really awesome trip to a museum. And then I was able to go on my first dig to actually start digging mammoths when I was 14 years old. So I've been doing it for a while.
Very cool. Thank you. All right. So we do have questions for both of you. The first question for
Sure.
Roger. Shelby was wondering, what other stuff have you made? And I think that they're probably talking about what other kinds of video games have you worked on?
Yeah, for sure. So I've worked on a lot of video games. And in fact, if you want to see video games that students have made, if you go to EAE, like the letter E, the letter A, the letter E, .utah.edu, you can see student video games and play student video games. And they're free and they're a lot of fun. So I've helped students make some really popular video games. One of the biggest ones was called Cyber Heist. It won a bunch of awards. One person's a hacker trying to hack into a computer. But a lot of my stuff is educational. So Dino Lab is an example of one of the games that we worked on. If you've been to the Natural History Museum, when you walk in the front, there are actually a couple of games there in the entryway that you can play on touchpads. We worked on those as well. And when I say we, it's mostly students doing that work, and we sort of give them guidance as professors. So it's a fun opportunity for them. But let me think about this. Some of the more fun games that I've done, I did a game called the Patient Empowerment Game, or the PE game, and it's an exercise game for kids in the hospital. So normally kids get their exercise through playing, but it can be difficult to play when you're in a hospital or when you're at home, like many kids are today. And so video games can be a great way to get some exercise and some playing. And so it's a game where you use like a Wiimote or a Sony Move controller, and you do exercises like lassoing a whale and saving it, or recycling cans where the robots are trying to stop you from recycling, and pretty exciting stuff. And it's a lot of fun. But we've made just a ton of games, about 60 games over the years doing this kind of work.
That's so very, very cool. And there are a couple of follow-up questions about the games, but I'm going to jump to Carrie.
Sure.
I have a question for you. So Carrie, it says Carrie Lucas from Sandy is wondering, what are some of the most important bones that have been found at Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry?
Oh, that's a great question. So Allosaurus fragilis is Utah state fossil, and it's because it's Utah state fossil because of all the bones found at Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry. We have the most Allosaurus fragilis of anywhere in the world, and we have them all at our museum, which is really, really awesome. And so those ones are the most important. A lot of people want to study theropods, which are the meat-eating dinosaurs that walked on two legs like T-Rex. Everybody wants to study T-Rex, but they need a lot of things to compare it to, a lot of comparative material, and so they end up comparing it to Allosaurus, and they have to come into our museum to compare their Tyrannosaurus Rex specimens with our Allosaurus specimens. So Allosaurus fragilis, I think, is the most important ones that are found at Cleveland Lloyd. They also, what's really neat about the bones found there is it's a wide range of both babies, juveniles to adults. And so that's really cool. So we have like the mantle claw of a baby and the same claw, same anatomical element from the adult. And so the fact that we have that wide range of both babies and adult bones is really awesome. But my favorite bone, I think, in the entire museum, which is saying something, is also from Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry. It's a femur of an Allosaurus, but what makes it really cool is it has been fossilized with amethyst. So the inside of the bone is full of these beautiful purple amethyst crystals.
That's rad.
Yeah, that is so cool.
So cool.
Roger, Montana, who's here in Utah, is wondering, what is your favorite video game?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. There are a lot of video games that I really like. So I love older video games like Pac-Man, right? I like newer video games like Minecraft and Fortnite. You know, these are all a lot of fun. The games I enjoy most are the games that let me play with other people. So while I love playing racing games on my own and having cars run around and stuff like that, I love playing any video game that lets me play those games with others. And that's actually gotten really popular in general. And so esports is a way that people play games together. And we do that at the U. There's an esports team. But if I had to pick one game of all time that I think is the best video game I've ever played, hands down, it's Dino Lab.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And also, I really appreciate that you are tuning in from Dino Lab right now. So
yeah, I'm in the Dino Lab.
from
It's so
Dino
exciting
Lab,
to be
which is
here.
so great. All right, so here's a question for Carrie. Shelby is wondering, what is the biggest dinosaur that you have found?
That's a good question. The biggest dinosaur that I've been on the excavation for is a dinosaur called Dystrophius, and it is a sauropod dinosaur, a long neck and long tail guy. So the largest creatures of all times, the largest dinosaurs of all times. And what was really cool about Dystrophius is it was actually the first dinosaur ever found west of the Mississippi, and the first one found in Utah. And it was found in 1857, I think. And what was interesting is they found it off the side of a cliff and they reported it. They took great notes and reported it, but then it was so hard to get to that nobody could find it again. And so our team actually went to it to excavate the rest of it out in 2014. And we had to rock climb to get up to it, which was really cool. We don't usually have to rock climb to get to our dinosaur quarries. So that was really neat. And we were finding some really, really cool bones from Dystrophius. So the Dystrophius the sauropod was the largest dinosaur I've excavated.
Very cool. Well, this next question I think is maybe for both of you. Probably could answer it. But how did we decide on which dinosaurs are featured in the Dino Lab game? So like how did we narrow down the list, I guess, of the body parts that we ended up using?
That's a good question.
I think we like determined which. Well, first we were thinking, do we do all Jurassic dinosaurs? Because that was Cleveland Lloyd is from Jurassic. But I think we ended up going with which had the most striking different body plans. Does that sound about right?
It does. So the way that we make video games in general is we come up with these ideas, but they come from a lot of collaboration with different people. And so when we designed Dino Lab, Carrie is considered one of the designers of Dino Lab because she was in the design process from the very beginning, as well as students. Students are designers on Dino Lab, as are teachers. So, and that's what makes a great video game work. So when picking what dinosaurs and really anything that's in this game, we did a lot of interviews with people. And so we sat down with them and we did a design process together, a lot of drawing on whiteboards and taking of notes. And I think Carrie's right. We said, originally we wanted all dinosaurs from Cleveland Lloyd, but then we said, hey, we want to make sure that there's contrast in these dinosaur parts. So which ones are faster or slower or carnivorous or herbivore. And so whatever dinosaurs could give us the biggest contrast is how we got there. But we really leaned on experts like Carrie and like the museum partners to sort of tell us which dinosaurs, because let's be honest, if I'm picking the dinosaurs, I'm going to pick the ones from Jurassic Park. And that's not a good criteria for a science game.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very helpful to sort of understand that process that you underwent. We have some general questions for Roger just about like how would a kid go about learning how to design games? Is there software that kids could use at home if they wanted to learn how to build video games?
Yeah, there's wonderful software if you want to learn how to build a video game. So there's good software that is free out there and some that costs a little bit of money. But if you look up a program called Game Maker or Game Salad, those are good places to start. And a lot of that is just dragging and dropping and making games. If you have a Nintendo Switch, Mario Maker is a great place to start because you can just drag and drop blocks and make games, or making games in Minecraft is also a great way. But if you Google Game Camp or how to make a first video game, you'll get wonderful online resources about how to do it. And if you want afterwards, we can make my contact available. And if you have questions about where to go or where to download software to learn how to make a video game, I'm happy to give you those links.
Thank you. Yeah,
of course.
That'd be great. So this question is probably for both of you. So let's start with Carrie. Carrie, what's the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is being surrounded by fossils. I love going out in the field, particularly to dig up new dinosaurs, which is my favorite part. And Utah is an amazing place for fossils, and so we can really be like, well, what do we want to dig today? Do we want to dig up a mammoth? Well, where our museum is on top of a bunch of Pleistocene fluvial deposits, so a bunch of rocks down there. If we want to dig up in the Jurassic, and we go down near Moab. If we want to dig in the Cretaceous, we go down to Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. So Utah is just an amazing place, and so we plan out our field trips accordingly based on what we want to excavate. Of course, we always have permission to do it, so you can't just go anywhere and collect fossils. You have to have a permit to do it. But if you do find a T-Rex in your backyard, you are allowed to keep it.
I'm gonna go look.
All right, Roger. So same question for you. What's the best part of your job?
Yeah, the best part of my job is getting to work with students and making games with students. I love working with students. It literally is the best part of my job. And and I think on that in general, it's getting to work with other people as well. I learn a ton from my students making games with them, but then I get to make games with people like Carrie, or with doctors or dentists or pilots, and getting to meet these people and understand their jobs and what they do. It's amazing, right? It keeps me interested in all of these wonderful things and finding out about the amazing things that people do. It's incredible the kinds of things that learning opens up for all of us. And so finding about how they got to be a paleontologist, or how they became a doctor, or how they became a pilot, is fascinating to me, right? And yeah, and getting to make learning games and educational games about that is an awesome experience.
Excellent. All right. Well, so this is kind of a specific question, but what were some of the challenges when you were building the Dino Lab game? Do you remember running into any?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
Dino
of
Lab?
course, of course. Yeah, making the Dino Lab game, there were a few different challenges, right? It took because we were so thoughtful about it, because Dino Lab isn't just a fun video game, it's a video game that's based on science. And it's really based on two kinds of science. One of them is paleontology, right? We want to make sure all of the facts are right. But the other one is learning sciences. And so we had teachers collaborating with us. And so it's you want to make sure that a video game is both fun, but that it's also based on facts and good learning practices. And so we would build the game and then test it, and then ask our experts to also test it, and then rebuild it. So Dino Lab has been rebuilt 3 or 4 different times to get to the stage it is today. And that means it was rebuilt graphically to get prettier over time. In the beginning, the background was just green and the dinosaurs were sort of floating in green space. And then we realized that having a laboratory setting was actually more interesting. Students told us that. They said, well, the green space virtual reality thing is interesting, but wouldn't it be cooler if it was like in a museum or in a lab? And that's how we got there. So there are technical things you have to deal with, like getting the graphics to work and getting Dino Lab to work online. And then there are science things you want to make sure are right. And the way you do that is just like any process, you create a hypothesis, or you build something, and then you test it, and then you see what the results are. And if the results are positive, you move forward. And if they're not where you want them to be, you go back to your hypothesis and say, what's going on here? And that was the process of building Dino Lab. Very iterative, very collaborative, and a lot of fun. And then also getting the dinosaurs to light right, to look as good as they do right now, that was an exciting thing too.
Very cool. We have a question again for you, Roger.
Sure.
Have you taken, or did you need to take medical classes to help, I guess, with some of the medical games and technologies that you've worked on?
That's an excellent question. So as a professor, my specialty is in games and game development, how we make video games. So I'm not a medical doctor, but I actually work up in the hospital, right? And that's a funny thing to think about, this video game professor working in a hospital. So the answer is no, but I collaborate with them on everything that we do. In the same way that I'm not an expert on paleontology or dinosaurs, that's Carrie. She's the expert on this stuff. We work together to make a game like Dino Lab. And the same is true of medical games. So like when I was working with Carrie, she was generous enough to sort of take us behind the scenes and let us see the collection, and spent a lot of time educating us so that the students and I could be better informed and then served as that expert on the game. And the same is true with the doctors. So I've been to surgeries, I've had to scrub in and put on all the things to watch surgeries. And I've learned a ton about the medical system, but I am not a doctor. But doing those kinds of things helps me understand what doctors do and make things that are more accurate when we work together.
Sounds like just with our, similar to our collaboration, that these collections bring together many people who are all experts in sort of their field. So thinking of Carrie as the expert, we did have a question just about how, we always get this question right about how do you become a paleontologist?
Yeah.
And maybe tell us more about your career path, Carrie, and what that looks like for students out there that are interested in being scientists when they grow up.
Got it. So paleontology is kind of a mixture of a bunch of different sciences. So you need to know biology about animals and how animals and beings function successfully, and you need to know about the rocks, the geology that you find the dinosaur bones in. And so you can go in two different paths or combine them, the geology and the biology. And I actually went the geology route, and so I learned a lot about the rocks and the environments that create fossils and create the rocks and that kind of a thing. But in doing so, I had to learn a lot of biology too. My specific expertise in paleontology is about ceratopsian dinosaurs, like this one right here. Ceratopsian dinosaurs and how they grow. And that is a big biology question. And so I actually had to learn a lot about biology and about blood flow through animals with vascular canals and how cells are created and that kind of thing, because you actually can see fossilized cells of the bone tissue still after 150 million years. So that's incredible. And what I do for my research is I actually cut open dinosaur bones using a tile saw and make thin sections and look at them under a microscope. And I'm able to tell based on looking at them under a microscope how old the dinosaur was when it died, whether it was warm-blooded or cold-blooded, how long it took to grow, and a lot of different things. So both a mixture of, like I said, geology and biology, science for sure. So definitely pay attention in your science classes, all of them, even chemistry. Yeah, and then when you get to college, I would do biology or geology, but I've also had friends who are paleontologists who have studied anthropology or environmental studies, that kind of a thing. If you get an opportunity to do your own research, that's a really big advantage that some people get. Yeah. So.
Excellent. I think we're getting close to our time. One more question for Roger. Can you tell us about any current projects that you're working on?
Yeah, certainly. So right now I'm working on a really cool virtual reality project called Virtual Limb. So some people, when they get an injury to their arm or leg or back, they have to see doctors called physical therapists to work on that. And there are all sorts of reasons why they can't go to the doctor. Sometimes it's like what we're experiencing now, so they can't go to the doctor, or they live too far from a doctor. Let's imagine you live in rural Montana and there's not a hospital near you. So this is a virtual reality system that we can ship to your home, and you can work with doctors in another city or another state to do exercises. And it looks super cool because when you put it on, you see these like robot hands and legs, and you're moving balls around and lifting hoops. And it's all the exercises you would do with physical therapists, except you do them virtually. What's really interesting about it is we work with patients who've had amputations, who've lost their arm, and we're able to put a virtual reality arm there so they can keep doing exercises and learn how to use prosthetic limbs at the same time. So we put like sensors on their arms to do really fun things. So it's incredible. So if you like playing video games, you should try making a video game. You will learn so much from it. Making dinosaurs is fun, making video games is fun. And there's all sorts of wonderful opportunities for you to do that. It's an exciting career, and you'll learn a ton doing it. And so, yeah, like Carrie said, pay attention in school and then and then get out there and actually try and make some things. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Excellent. Carrie, we have one last question for you too. Danica from Spokane, Washington is wondering, what's your favorite theropod?
Well, that's a good question. So theropods, again, are the bipedal, so they walk on 2 legs instead of 4, meat-eating dinosaurs. And the most famous one is Tyrannosaurus rex, and that's usually everybody's favorite. But my favorite, I think, is Allosaurus fragilis, because it is Utah state fossil, and we have so many of them in the museum. And I think it's just as cool and just as ferocious and scary as T-Rex, but it doesn't get the street cred that it deserves.
I think that's an excellent choice. I'm gonna have to second you on that one. That's a great one.
It's now my favorite too.
Yeah.
You convinced all of us, Gary.
Hooray.
We have a new favorite. Thank you again so much for joining us during our study hall time with Research Quest Live. We're so excited to have these episodes that we now are making available ongoing so people can continue to check them out. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And maybe we'll see you again in a future study hall guest session. So
Thank you so much for having us.
yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Good to see you both. Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay, so again, if you want to check out this archived session later, you can check that out at our archive, nhmu.utah.edu/rqlive-archive. And if you want to provide feedback on our conversation today or on our class, you can visit our sharing form at nhmu.utah.edu/rqlive-share.